Yeah, I mean, obviously from the portal experience, Jennifer, the other founder, and I both understood the whole charging, billing area of telco extremely well. We had a whole bunch of engineers that obviously worked with us for a long time. When the iPhone came out in 2007, we immediately recognized that it was going to cause a huge disruption in the market. And yeah, I mean, obviously it changed the game probably 100 times more than we even imagined. but even with our vision of what it could be, we had a pretty good sense just from experience that the industry would aim at what I call the shiny side of the problem, which is the devices and the networks. And sure enough, I mean, we started MATRIXX in 2009. And if you look up until a couple years ago, other than MATRIXX, while the devices had gotten 10,000 times faster, the network got 10,000 times faster, the software available to the telecom to manage all that chaos and to create the subscriber experience was largely the same stuff that had been around for 50 years or 30 years. Yeah. So. Yeah, and I think it happens in a lot of industries where a major disruption occurs, which is, these are large companies, they have huge investments, both on the operator side and the vendor side, huge investments in the existing architectures, the existing implementations, all the IT legacy. And so to some extent, there's a resistance to want to recognize how different it's becoming. And so it's a bit of a boil the frog problem, but at some point, the frog notices. And I think a couple of years ago, we really started seeing the CEOs kind of wake up and realize they were just going to slowly, they're going to slowly die as an industry if they didn't take some action and become far more competitive and far more customer focused. Yeah, it's actually been interesting for us because we started the company assuming it would be more of an IT network type of a relationship, but in reality, because what we're providing is really a transformation of the whole business to digital, a completely different cost base, entirely new revenue streams, completely different customer experience. That's really a discussion that the C-suite has, and so we've ended up with all of our relationships largely being at the CEO level. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, again, there's a huge infrastructure that has been in place for what I would call the flip phone era, which is pretty voice-oriented. The complexity and chaos is limited by what a human can do with a phone. People make 13 phone calls a day back then. They make 0 now, but the reality is that entire generation technology from end to end, from the network to the subscriber experience back to the ERP, was all designed around a set of expectations that you talked to a CSR and had a 3-minute experience if you wanted to buy something. You didn't know how much you'd spent till the end of the month when the bill showed up. I mean, So those, and tremendous respect to those platforms. I mean, they were built to be very rugged and very reliable, but they solved a problem that unfortunately changed dramatically with the introduction of the smartphone. And so what we've done is build a generation of solution that essentially addresses 5G and IoT and mass adoption of self-care through the mobile app and a marketplace type interaction with your subscriber. It's just a completely different world. I would say there's two real differences in how we approach the problem. From a technology standpoint, we step back and there's a British Air Force gentleman that invented the jet engine, that basically applied Bernoulli's equations to flying, and I'm sure he had the same problem. He was tasked with make the plane go faster, and the propeller just wasn't getting the job done, right? So we kind of took the same approach. We stepped back because we'd studied for 15 years real-time rating, batch rating, all the business logic processing, transaction processing, and we recognized that where the industry was going to go with the smartphone, that entire approach just wasn't going to work. You know, we needed the anti-gravity machine essentially, and so we stepped back and we designed a whole new stack. And we are the only vendor that has done that. I mean, everyone else is trying to make their propellers go faster, and because it's a huge investment. I mean, we spent almost 5 years building the first version of the product to bring to market. The other thing we do very differently is our business model. You know, the industry has faded into a business model where there's a lot of change requests and a lot of sort of project-oriented development, and that runs directly contrary to business agility. You know, if I want to attack the market and my marketing person wakes up one morning with this brilliant idea, I want to be in market, you know, 2 days later with all the billboards and ready to go. If it takes 6 months to program it, you're done, and you can't respond to competitors. You can't do things that are oriented around, you know, World Cup or Olympics. I mean, you need that very fast business agility, right? And so we've built a model around having a highly configurable product rather than trying to force you to hire us to keep programming all the time. And I think some of it is just you know, my whole approach to technical problems is let's go figure out the right solution. And I think there's a lot of companies that try to figure out the quick solution they can move on. And the problem is you're slowly building a house of cards. You know, if the more successful you become, the more it's going to all collapse in a heap eventually. And so we went and found investors. We were very lucky to find investors who had built real companies. You know, our investors come from the EMC, VMware, Juniper world. They're not sort of lightweight, quick turn it over type people. So they were willing to give us those years of development to really build something special. Well, I think part of it is it's a very young population in the Middle East, and so, you know, if I've got kids that are 18 to 26 years old, and if I tried to force them to use the old school telco experience, they would laugh at me, right? They would never imagine paying $80 a month for a bundle and things like that. And so anywhere you have a high population of youth, I think it's going to push the market quicker. But we are seeing, even in the U.S., we've deployed a youth brand, a millennial brand for Verizon now, which is one of the kind of old schoolest telcos on earth. So we're seeing it in other parts of the world, but I think the Middle East is kind of leading that. We've also been very lucky. We brought in some really strong leadership and some great people that have built up a real critical mass of competence. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we're going to keep scaling very, very aggressively. You know, the domino effect is starting to occur. All of the CEOs know each other all over the world, basically, and so they're our best references. And then we're also getting out, making sure we are the thought leaders for 5G monetization, for IoT monetization. And again, if you look, most of the vendors, you know, it's the network equipment guys. When they look at 5G, they're looking at $1 billion worth of network equipment. They're not as focused on this monetization side. And this is our bread and butter. This is all we do.